We're starting!
Thank you all for coming.
Oi! There you go.
Thank you.
Oi.
Welcome to Where Sex Meets Isms, from shame to self-expression. We want to make sure everybody knows this is being videotaped. If you don't want to have your voice on the videotape, ask a neighbor to ask the question, or as
Except for Reid's hand in front of the lens.
We also have a sign-up sheet that's going to be going around. Michelle is passing it around. We did a lot of, pulled together some data and statistics for the research for this, and if you want the PDF and also want to be signed up for our newsletters, you can go ahead and sign up, and we'll be glad to send that to you. So we'll be going through how isms affect sexuality and sexual self-expression, and we'll be talking about sizeism, ageism, ableism, racism, sexualism, genderism, and beautyism. But we don't have time to go into depth into each of these different isms. We're going to each share our own expressions, our own experiences as we go through these. So it's not going to be a comprehensive, like, this is what ageism is. We assume that most of you have a pretty good idea of that, but we want to talk about ways that it affects us in our expression and also ways we can counteract it. So, and in the interest of keeping things moving along, we have so much to cover. I will interrupt people if they start getting really passionate about something and going on about it.
I should have brought my crop.
Oh, that would have been
I
great.
should have brought my crop.
Yeah.
So I'm Cathy from theintimacydojo.com. I'm a PhD engineer, and I'm a certified advanced emotional freedom techniques coach who coaches internationally on trauma, shame, body image, and sexuality. And I'm really delighted to be here with such a fantastic panel. I have here Kelly Shabari is currently the only plus-sized Asian American porn performer in the U.S. She has since taken her public persona to become a stereotype crushing figurehead for chubby Asian girls everywhere. Najela Reid is a BBW web model, journalist, podcast host, and sex blogger. She hosts After Dark, a body and sex positive podcast on Twib FM. She's the author of BlazingBitch.com, which was nominated for the Black Weblog Awards Best Sex and Relationship Blog in 2012. We have Ellie Chase, aka the Lady Cheeky, is a sex writer, a sexuality educator, and a sensuality coach who speaks nationally on body image, sexuality, and redefining your sexual self after 40. Did you try to make that a tongue twister?
I did. I did.
Awesome.
She's also the creator of two popular award-winning websites, ladycheeky.com and forsmarties.com. And finally, last but not least, Buck Angel is a pioneering filmmaker, inspirational speaker, and advocate. He coined the phrase, "It's not what's between your legs that defines you." It has proven a remarkable insight and a validation for men, women, and those who identify as neither, both, or other. Buck also plays golf and gets lots of ladies pregnant.
I had to put it there, just to make sure you were awake.
So we're each just going to take a minute or two to share why isms, talking about isms, is important to us. And for me, this is really important because for 14 years, I didn't date and I didn't have a relationship because I was fat. And I absolutely believed that if you're fat, no one would fuck you. And I was really lonely those years. And I don't believe that anyone needs to be there because Reid actually kicked me out of the out dating. I worked with him a bit and I was out dating 2 weeks later. And I have had more dates in my schedule than I can fit. So it's all up here. My weight hasn't changed. Society hasn't changed. What changed was up here. And I want everybody to have access to that. So I'm so glad you're all here sharing this, learning and talking about it and sharing it, because we start making a difference when we do that. So thank you.
Yes. I was going to ask if you're going to stand the whole time.
No, I was just...
So my story about dealing with isms is obviously about sizeism. It's less about racism, although I've dealt with some of that, but I was born and raised in Japan, so my history with racism is a little bit different. Growing up in Japan, my story's always been about size, because especially as an Asian girl, you're taught that you're supposed to be small and petite and quiet, and which is odd and kind of hypocritical, because Japan is strangely, a very matriarchal society. It took me having to move to the States and then eventually getting out from behind the camera, because I used to be a production designer and art director, to getting in front of the camera as a porn performer, to actually accept that my size was something that was positive. And it's interesting when people tell you about society and how they tell you that certain sizes aren't acceptable for attraction, for success in business, all those kinds of things. And I've kind of broken every single one of those. So yeah, so that's my kind of story.
Hi everybody. I kind of deal with a very colorful intersection of different isms. You know, obviously I'm a woman of size, I'm a sex worker, I'm a cam model, and also I have to deal with racism, not just as a black woman, which I'm love black, but I'm also a mixed race woman. I'm black and Asian, hence Malaysian bitch. I had to deal with a lot of the expectations of what that would be, and what, like Kelly's saying, what Asian is to sexuality, and what being a black woman people expect out of your sexuality. So those have been some of the isms that I deal with.
Hi. My experience came late in life. When I was 40, I left a sexless marriage. Realized I'd never enjoyed sex. Didn't know what the deal was. So I went out and I explored. And as I explored, I had to come into, you know, awareness of my body. That, you know, I live in Los Angeles. I'm not tan with a little turned up nose and you know, and built like that. So I had to really get okay with myself. And by accepting myself and my size, I went out and dated, and it was the most life-affirming part of my life. Through sex and through looking for pleasure and really trying to integrate sensuality into every part of my life. I found a self-confidence that really does bleed into every area of who I am. So that's sort of my story.
You're sticking to it.
I was sticking to it. Damn it.
Basically, my story deals with gender and sexuality, being born a female and becoming a man, and then basically having to deal with not liking myself as a woman for most of my life was shut me off to so much of my life. And then becoming a man and having to deal with being a man with a vagina was just a whole nother ism, really. And you know, you're not a man, you can't have sex, you have a vagina, you're supposed to have a cock, you're supposed to have, you know, all these kinds of things really affected my self-esteem and my desire to have sex, because I was completely disassociated with myself and my body for many years, because being told in society that I'm not a man and that I can't do those kind of things. So that said, I finally told the world to fuck off and just reclaimed myself and my vagina.
So we're just going to do it freeform if people want to answer. How do you see, you've each shared specific incidents in your life, but how do isms challenge and disempower people about around sexuality in general?
I guess I'll go. Well, I know for me, when I first started sex work, I was a dancer. So I was working at this club whenever they had like a big girl night, because you know, we're only a special occasion. Right. And the other dancers refused to change the same room as the big dancers. Oh. So we couldn't use their showers, we couldn't use their makeup room or anything like that. So we had this like little like storeroom that they just stuck us in, and that was our changing room. And we couldn't have, there was no like privacy or anything. It was very disheartening, because here I am doing the same thing that these other women were doing, and it wasn't the customers that were saying, oh, you have no value, but it was people that I thought would be my ally because we're doing the same type of work. And I think also being a performer, it's always a battle to say I have value. And not I have value despite being a bigger woman, or despite the fact that I am black, or despite that I have dark skin or a wide nose. It's I have value because I'm a human being and I should be respected. and that should reflect in my sexuality. I think when people are having that struggle, it affects how you value yourself, because you're constantly, it's like you're trying to box with God, because you're trying to make society see your value.
Yeah.
I think also your body image and so much of your self-confidence, really the baseline you get is when you're growing up, whether you like it or not. And for me, my parents never said anything complimentary about my physical body, except my dad said I had a nice neck, and my mother said I had nice nail beds. So when I'm dating,
on your resume.
it really should be nice nail beds. So,
Which now you cover up with nail polish.
well, they're nicely, they're nicely framed by my nail beds. Going out into high school, you're kind of like, well, I have a nice neck and nice nail beds. No, it's kind of like, wow, I really wish someone would have said, you're beautiful just the way you are, you're smart, you're this, you're that, because you carry it with you. And even though we have great days, I'm sure, and we're liberated in that way from that stigma ourselves, we still have our bad days. And it always comes back to that, so.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, especially when it comes to size, because bullying about size is one of these like weird society acceptable bullying, because you get it not only from your parents, but even if your parents are telling you that you're beautiful regardless of your size, you, as a child, you have a tendency to believe your peers more than your parents, because you think that your parents are always going to be there to protect you. So you have a tendency to go, okay, well, my friends are at least going to be honest with me. And when those people that you think are your peers in your same age group, when you're in junior high or high school or even younger, and they're either teasing you or bullying you or downright just being outright mean to you when you are younger, then that eventually just feeds into all of your decision-making skills when you're older. And that's exactly what happened to me, because I was bullied for the longest time for being like the only fat kid in school in Japan, and I was like a size 12. And then I moved, and literally like moving from Japan to college in the States and realizing, wow, not only am I not the biggest girl in the room, most people are